Hello, welcome to Esther's Gardening Adventures. I'm Esther, and today I'm going to talk about how to prepare your jugs for winter sowing in this episode of Winter Sowing 101. I'm going to use the milk jug as the primary example because that's the most commonly used item. So the first thing that's first is you don't need a cap, all right? And real quick before I go any further, I want to say that if you're curious about the other steps that I have outlined on winter sowing, like what is winter sowing, why you should try it, what kind of containers work best, when to start, all that stuff, check out the series that I'm doing this under, and I'll have a link to, should be right here, right about now, if I remember how to do that right. Anyway, okay, so when you have the container, the first question is, does the label cover like a big part that you have to remove? If so, remove it. Otherwise, I just left the label on. For something like this, I'm going to be cutting right about here. And so it's not going to be an issue, this thing, although I might take the top part of it off if it ends up getting in the way of my line. As for where you're going to want to put your holes, you're going to want drainage holes in the bottom, and you're going to want at least one, if not two, drainage holes on the side, fairly low down. And the reason for that is, let's say somehow the drainage holes in the bottom aren't working, or you've had so much rain that the place that they're located in is just not, the ground that they're on or the place that you've set them is just not draining fast enough. Having drainage holes on the side will allow a secondary flood drainage option for them. And I found it didn't dry out my plants too much. All right, so you're going to want both holes in the bottom. I don't know there's a hard and fast rule. You want to make sure it's enough that they'll drain. I tend to do like 1 to 2 in each quadrant, and then maybe a couple for this because there's that sinkhole. I usually do a couple here just in case. Like I said, it's however you feel like it should be done for that. Then also you're going to want to do a hole, and the reason I'm talking you through it is because when I'm drilling I can't really talk, and therefore I'll just have music playing or something. You're also going to drill a little hole right around the place that you're going to cut the jug around. And the reason for that is to get a place for your scissor to get into easily. If you don't do that, you'll have to pinch it or do something else. And having a little hole there to get the tip of your scissors in is just super helpful. All right. The other thing you want to have, and I forgot to include this on my supplies list, but of course it was sort of indirectly included, is to have a Sharpie. Now, when you get more used to this, you won't need the Sharpie as much, but for me, when I was cutting the jugs, I ended up cutting like weird shapes that just didn't fit very well. So if you kind of draw the shape of how you want it to go around, then when you're cutting with your scissors, it's just easier to have a guideline. So I'm going to start off by doing that, because I can talk through that. So where you want to cut is, you don't want to cut where the handle is, because you want it to be used, I don't have one in front of me, but you want it to be like a flap. So you're probably going to cut, and I like to leave the back where the handle is, the part that's uncut. So I'm going to start like right here, and I do like a thing like this, a line like that, just to remind myself if I'm sort of being forgetful or not paying attention to what I'm doing, that I want to stop cutting there, right? And then I just draw around, a line around. It doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes they don't always meet. Quite often they don't always meet. But that's the joy of, and again, another line here just to remind myself to end there when I'm cutting. And, you don't have to follow it like gospel. Obviously, you want it to be straight or whatever. There you go. All right. So let me get to drilling first. That's about it. Now, one of the things I did forget is you will have lots of little pieces of plastic. And so I recommend doing this over a hard floor, like in your kitchen or dining room, or somewhere you can sweep or vacuum easily. All right, so now you can see we have a bunch of holes. Now, because my holes are smaller, I'm doing more of them, but if you're doing bigger holes, you probably don't need quite as many. All right, and then I also, as you can see, I drilled a little hole. I don't know how well the camera can pick that up, but I drilled a little hole right there. So now I'm going to go in and cut. And I haven't sharpened these, so I might regret this and then have to cut again. And you know what, we'll see. We'll see how well, oh, it's cutting just fine. So you just cut around, obviously, but I'll show you the whole thing. Oh yeah, I also did a hole here and a hole here for my side drainage holes. Yeah, all right. Now where was I? And if you watched the last video, you saw I said how easy it is to cut with these scissors, because basically it takes, the only work I have to do is pinching to make it go in. It opens automatically for me because it has that spring in it, where with regular scissors, which I'm not even going to show because it's a pain in the butt, where with regular scissors. The other thing I do when I'm doing this process is I check to see if I've cut it enough for it to open easily. So here, I haven't gone quite far enough around this bend, so I'm just going to go a tiny bit further, see there, and a tiny bit further here. Come on. Do need to sharpen these. And look, now it does that fine. Inside, we have probably a good 3 inches to 4 inches of space. You know, they say a knuckle is an inch, so 3 to 4 inches of space to put your soil in. And basically that's how you prep your jug. By having the cut below the handle, you don't have to worry about trouble opening it. Sometimes people, if they do it later, like opening and closing the jug will be more hard. And this way it's much easier to get in and out of. And honestly, you don't need a huge amount of dirt unless you're planning on doing the kind of plant that needs deep roots, like carrots or something like that. But if you're doing something that you're going to be transplanting pretty much as soon as it gets its true leaves, like the first set of leaves that plants produce are just their starter leaves, and then they have their true leaves that are actually the leaves of what the plant looks like once they have the true leaves. Some plants develop really strong root systems, but some don't as much. So there you go. It's not pretty, but you know what? It'll do the job. Now let me grab a couple more things to show you examples of how I cut them. So I'm not actually going to drill these, and you might have seen them used as examples in the last video. But for this one, I just cut holes. I drilled holes just on each of the bottom ones, and then I think I did a couple in between. And that worked well for drainage. Again, and I had, you could see there, kind of see there the whole side hole I did on each side. There's the other side hole right there. See it? Yeah. So side holes on those. And then for this one, again, I did it so that, and I didn't realize the handle would come in like that so much in an indent. So I did it right before the handle sort of turns, although that's less of an issue because it doesn't reconnect like the other one. If I were to drill this again, if I were to cut this again, I would actually go a little bit lower before it started going in. See how it starts going in here? I would actually go a little bit lower because it'd be easier to get the soil out. So yeah, I hope that helps. And of course in this one I just did holes around the outside because this point is higher than the others, right? So yeah, I hope that's helpful to you. This is a relatively short video compared to the other ones I've done, but I figured it just couldn't hurt to see how the process goes. In the next video, I think I'm going to wait another week or so. Well, who knows? But in the next video somewhere, either immediately next or the next few, I might go over some of the plants that I did try to grow with winter sowing and kind of evaluate whether I want to do them again or not and explain to you why. And yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something, please hit the like button, and please tell me if you do winter sowing, are there any tips you would recommend or things that you think you do differently than I do that I'd love to hear your strategies. You know, it's all a work in progress. And otherwise, please subscribe if you aren't already a subscriber. And otherwise, I will see you next time.